Our story begins on a hot summer afternoon in the county of Derbyshire. Alice was sitting by her sister on a bank by a tall willow tree. She had peeked a couple of times into her sister's book, but as it contained no pictures or conversations, she found it dull.
What's the use of a book without pictures or conversations? I'm so bored, and it's so hot and sleepy. I wonder if the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up to pick all the daisies.
Just at that moment, a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by. Alice thought there was nothing so very remarkable in that, but then the rabbit actually took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it.
Curiouser and curiouser. Mr. Rabbit! Mr. Rabbit! I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late. I'm overdue. I'm really in a stew. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late.
The rabbit disappeared down a large rabbit hole under a hedge, and never once considering how in the world she was going to get out again, down went Alice after it. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped suddenly down. so suddenly that Alice had not for a moment thought about stopping herself before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her and to wonder what on earth would happen next.
Well, after such a fall as this, I shouldn't think anything of tumbling down the stairs. How brave they'll all think me at home. I wonder how far I've fallen at this point. I must be getting near the centre of the earth. That must be, let me think, 4,000 miles down. But I wonder what latitude and longitude I've got to. Supposing I fall right through the middle of the earth and come out the other side. How funny it will be to be among the people who walk with their heads downwards.
Finally, with a thump, Alice landed upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. In front of her was a long passage, and the White Rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it.
Mr. Rabbit! Mr. Rabbit!
I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late. I'm overdue. I'm really in a stew. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late.
Oh. Well, he was far too quick for me, and now I'll never find my way.
Which way do you want to go?
Startled by that voice, Alice looked around her and she saw a large cat sitting on a branch of a tree. It had very long claws and a good many teeth, but it looked good-natured enough and grinned from ear to ear. Alice had never seen a cat with such a huge grin. In fact, she didn't know cats could grin at all, so she asked,
Excuse me, Puss, but what variety of cat are you?
I am the Cheshire Cat.
And Cheshire Cat, why do you smile so?
Hey, nobleman, hey, dapper Dan, you both got your style, but sister, you'll never fully dress without a smile. Your clothes may be Beau Brummely, you'll know for a while, but sister, you're never fully dressed without a smile. Who cares what they're wearing in Main Street or Savile Row? It's what you wear from ear to ear and not from head to toe that matters. So senator, so janitor, so long for a while. Remember, you'll never fully dress without a smile. Here we go. You wear from ear to ear and not from head to toe that matters. So senator, so janitor, so long for a while. Remember, you're never fully dressed, though you may look your best. You're never fully dressed without a smile.
So, Mr. Cheshire Cat,
Well, that depends a great deal on which way you want to go.
Oh, well, I don't so much mind.
Then it doesn't matter which
As
way
long
you
as I
go.
end up somewhere.
Oh, you're sure to do that? If only you walk long enough.
Okay, well, what sort of people live around here?
In that direction lives a Mad Hatter. And in that direction lives a March Hare. Whichever you like. They're both mad.
Oh, well, I don't want to be around mad people.
Oh, you can't help that, dear. We're all mad here.
How do you know that I'm mad?
You must be. You wouldn't have come here else.
Well, how do you know that you're mad?
Well, to begin with, a dog's not mad, you'd say?
I suppose so.
Wow. Dogs growl when they're angry and wag their tails when they're pleased. I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry, therefore I'm mad.
I'd call that purring, not growling.
Call it what you like. It makes no difference. Have you met the Queen yet?
No, I haven't.
Don't worry, you will.
And with that, the Cheshire Cat simply vanished.
I wish people wouldn't keep appearing and then vanishing so suddenly. It's making me dizzy.
Slightly disorientated, Alice headed off in the direction of somewhere. Soon she came in sight of the March Hare's house, and she thought this must be his house because the chimneys were shaped like ears and the house was patched with fur. It was a very large house. There was a table set out under the tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse sat between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, which Alice thought must be very uncomfortable. The table was large and set with many table settings, but the three were huddled together at one end, and Alice drew near.
Picture us under this tree. It's tea for two and two for tea. You and me and me and you alone. Underneath this canopy, it's tea for two and two for tea. You and me and me and you alone. Under the tree, a tea for two and two for tea. You and me and you alone. No. Underneath its canopy, tea for two and two for tea. Tea and you and me, and I'm confused.
I am too.
No room, no room!
There's plenty of room.
Have some fizzy pop!
I can't see any fizzy pop.
Well, that's because there isn't!
Well, then it's very rude of you to offer me some.
Well, it's rude of you to sit down when you haven't been invited.
Well, I didn't realise it was your table. It's set for far more people than just you three.
Your hair needs cutting.
You shouldn't make unkind remarks.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
Oh, I love riddles. I believe I can guess the answer to this.
Do you mean you think you can find the answer to this?
Yes, exactly.
Then you should say what you mean.
I do. At least, I mean what I say, and that's the same thing.
Oh, no, it isn't. I mean, it's like me saying that I see what I eat is like I eat what I see.
You might just well say I like what I get. It's the same as I get what I like.
You might just as well say that I breathe as I sleep is the same as I sleep as I breathe.
Yeah, it is the same thing for you. Do you know the answer to the riddle yet?
No, I give up. What is the answer?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Nor I.
At
Then the three of
this,
you should
Alice
stop
got quite
wasting time.
irritated. Excuse me. At
Sorry,
this,
sister.
Alice got quite irritated.
Now I'm irritated. You should stop wasting time and use the time better by telling things that make sense than riddles that don't have any answers.
If you knew time like I know time, you wouldn't call him it. You would call it him.
I don't think I understand.
Well, of course you don't. I suppose you've never had a conversation with time.
Perhaps not. But I do know that I have to beat time when I play music.
Well, that explains it. He doesn't like to be beaten.
Oh.
If you were nice to him, he'd probably do whatever you asked him. I used to have a grandfather who had a clock, who had a wonderful relationship with time. My grandfather's clock was too large for the shelf, so it stayed 90 years on the floor. It was taller by half than the old man himself, though it weighed not a penny's weight more. It was bought on the morn of the day that he was born, and was always his treasure and pride. But it stopped short, never to go again, when the old man died. 90 years without slumbering, tick-tock, tick-tock, his life seconds numbering, tick-tock, tick, but it stopped short, never to go again, when the old man died. My grandfather said that of those he could hire, not a servant so faithful he found. For it wasted no time, and had one but desire, all at close of each week to be wound. And it kept in its place, not a frown upon its face, and its hands never hung by its side. But it stopped short, never to go again, when the old man died. 90 years without slumbering, tick-tock, tick-tock, his life seconds numbering, tick-tock, tick, but it stopped short, never to go again, when the old man died. Rang and alarmed in the dead of the night, an alarm that for years had been dumb. And we knew that his spirit was pluming for flight, that his hour for departure had come. Still the clock kept the time with a soft and muffled chime, as it silently stood by his side. But it stopped short, never to go again, when the old man died. 90 years without slumbering, tick-tock, tick-tock, his life seconds numbering, tick-tock, tick, but he stopped short, never to go again, when the old man died. But unfortunately, I quarrelled with time last March, just before she went mad. And now he makes it always 6 o'clock, always tea time.
Is that why there are so many place settings?
It's always tea time, so we don't have to wash up.
So you keep moving around as the things get used up.
Exactly.
But what happens when you get back to the start?
I'm getting very tired of this. I think the young lady should tell us a story.
Oh, well, I'm afraid I don't know any stories.
Then the dormouse can tell us one. Wake him up. Tell us a story and be quick about it before you fall asleep again.
Please do.
All right.
On your feet, that's it. Nice and loud now. She's been there.
Once upon a time in a faraway... Wait, what? Once upon a time there were 3 little sisters named Elsie, Lacey and Tin, and they lived at the bottom of a well.
But what did they live on?
Treacle.
Well, that's silly. They would have been ill.
They were very ill.
But why did they live at the bottom of a well?
It was a treacle well.
Oh!
Oh, don't be silly. There's no such thing.
You can't be silly. You better finish the story for yourself.
No, I'm sorry. Do go on. I dare say there may be one.
One indeed. The 3 little sisters were learning to draw, you know?
So what were they drawing?
Treacle.
But I don't understand. Where did they draw the treacle from?
Well, you can draw water from a water well, so I suppose they drew treacle from a treacle well.
But they were in the well.
Of course they were. Well in.
Take some more tea.
Well, I haven't had any yet, so I can't take any more.
You mean you can't take any less? You can always take more than nothing.
No one asked your opinion.
Who's being personal now? I think you shouldn't talk anymore.
This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could possibly bear. She got up in great disgust and walked.
I'm never going there again. That was the stupidest tea party I've ever been to.
Alice continued. She walked for what seemed like hours and hours and hours until she found herself at the entrance of a beautiful garden with colourful flower beds and cool fountains. And inside the gate was a gardener, and Alice went up to him and asked a question.
Excuse me, sir, but what kind of sweet flowers grow in your English country garden?
How many gentle flowers grow in an English country garden? I'll tell you now of some I know, and those I miss, I beg your pardon. Daffodils, heartsease and phlox,
garden grew a large rose bush, and the roses growing on it were white, but it was obvious the gardener had been trying to paint them red.
How'd you know that?
Well, because you have a paintbrush with red paint on it, and there are red paint spills all over the floor.
Oh, okay.
But why are you painting the roses red? They're so beautiful white.
Well, you see, miss, the rose bush was supposed to be red, and I planted a white one by mistake. If the Queen sees that I've done the wrong one, she's going to cut off my head. Oh no! Oh no! I think she's coming!
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for Her Majesty of Redness, the Queen of Hearts. Get up quickly.
On your feet!
You may be seated. Alice wasn't sure whether she should throw herself down on the floor, but it seemed an odd thing to do, so she stood and she waited.
Who is this? Idiot! What's your name, child?
Alice, so please, Your Majesty.
And who is that?
I don't know, it's no business of mine.
Off with her head.
Nonsense!
Excuse me, Your Majesty. She's only a child.
Get up. Get up! What have you been doing here?
I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. I was just trying to...
I can see what you've been trying to do. Off with his head.
Don't worry, you won't be beheaded.
Is his head off yet?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Good.
Just then, the Cheshire Cat appeared.
How would you like the Queen?
Not at all. She's extremely mean.
Who are you talking to?
Oh, just the Cheshire Cat. He's a friend of mine. I'll introduce you.
Well, I don't like the look of it at all. However, it may kiss my hand if it likes.
I'd rather not.
Don't be impertinent and don't look at me like that.
Well, a cat may look at the Queen in any way he likes. I've read that in a book somewhere, but I can't remember where.
Well, that may be so, but I wish you would have it removed.
Well, that's not very fair. It's a free country.
Whatever. I'm feeling rather peckish. You, rabbit, fetch me my tarts.
Your tarts, Your Majesty?
Yes. You imbecile, did you not hear me properly? For a creature with very large ears, you're very deaf. Fetch my tarts!
That was a little rude.
No one asked your opinion, child. Have you not heard that children should be seen and not heard? And what is this?
Your tarts, Your Majesty.
But there are only 10. Yes, 10. There are 3 missing. Who has stolen my tarts?
I don't know, Your Majesty.
Then find out.
How?
We'll bring everyone who has dressed as a Wonderland creature to the front, and I will personally inspect them.
Come along, everyone.
People are taking costumes off. We know where you are. Put them back on, madam. She's passed it to her husband. Let's be having you. mirror, Alice?
I am actually.
Well, this looks like you in your mirror. Let's give them some encouragement, or I'll cut your heads off.
What do you think, Cheshire Cat?
Interesting.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful costumes. We've got quite a few Tweedledees and Tweedledums. Okay.
It's 2 Salvation Army ones there, Alice.
Let me see. Right. I think I've made a decision.
Oh.
I think, and I'm not biased at all, but in 3rd place, I think these 2 ladies look wonderful.
Yeah.
Don't you think? These 2 ladies, I think they all look like triplets.
I think you're biased, Alice, because they look like you.
And in 2nd place, I'm going to come down here. And I do love your hat, so I think it's going to have to be you for 2nd place. Yay! And the trousers. Can everyone see the trousers? Wonderful trousers. You'll have to make sure you have a look at the end. I mean, everyone's photos. And in 1st place, my very dear friend, the White Rabbit.
Yes.
We need everybody now to go and sit back down, is that correct?
Yes. No.
Apart from the winners. So we could have a couple more.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Adios.
Brilliant.
Adios. We'll keep another rabbit. Actually, you can go back to...
Let's say well done to everybody, shall we? Well done.
Shuffle up this way, everyone. Is that...
Although the Queen had carefully inspected the Wonderland creatures, just a moment, please.
You can go down. Yes.
Was a little bit overwhelming in the Wonderland court.
How could she be
Poor
scared?
Alice was a little distraught. Although the Queen had carefully inspected the Wonderland creatures, they still didn't have a crumb of evidence as to who had stolen her tarts. So she decided they should have
A trial.
Oh.
Read the accusation.
The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts all on a summer day. The knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away.
Consider your verdict.
Not yet, not yet. There's a great deal come before that.
Call the first witness then.
First
First witness!
First witness.
I beg your Majesty's pardon for bringing these in, but I hadn't quite finished my tea when I was sent for.
Well, you ought to have finished. When did you begin?
The 14th of March.
15th.
16th.
Write that down, Alice. Take your hat off.
It isn't mine.
Stolen!
I keep them to sell. I've none of my own. I'm a hatter.
Give your evidence and don't be nervous, or I'll simply have you executed on the spot.
I'm a poor man, Your Majesty, and I hadn't begun my tea, and what with the bread and butter getting thin, and the twinkling of the tea.
The twinkling of the what?
It began with the tea.
Of course twinkling begins with a T. Do you take me for a dunce? Go on.
I'm a poor man, and most things twinkled after that, and the marsh hare said...
I didn't.
You did?
I deny it.
He denies it.
Well, at any rate, the dormouse said... And after that, I cut some more bread and butter.
But what did the dormouse say?
That I can't remember.
But you must remember, or I shall have you executed.
Oh, I'm a poor man, Your
You
Majesty.
certainly are a very poor speaker, and if that's all you know about it, you may stand down.
Well, I can't go no lower. I'm already on the floor.
Then you may sit down.
I'd rather finish my tea.
You may go. And just take his head off once he's outside, will you? Call the next witness. Call the next witness.
Next witness.
Alice watched the White Rabbit as he fumbled over the list, feeling very curious to see what the next witness would be like.
But I haven't got much evidence yet.
Imagine her surprise when the White Rabbit read out at the top of his shrill little voice the name
Alice!
That's me. Here.
What do you know about this business?
Nothing.
Nothing? Whatever?
Nothing whatever.
That's very important.
Unimportant, Your Majesty means, of course.
Unimportant, of course, I meant. Silence! Rule 42, and stop sniggering out there. Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court.
But I'm not a mile high.
You are nearly 2 miles high.
Well, I shan't go because that's a silly rule that you've just made up now.
It's the oldest rule in the book.
Well, then it should be rule number 1.
Silence! Or I will have you executed. Let the jury consider their verdict.
There's more evidence to come yet, please, Your Majesty. This paper has just been picked up.
What's in it then?
It seems to be a poem written to somebody.
Well, it must have been, unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know. Read it.
Where shall I begin from, Your Majesty?
Begin at the beginning. It's a very good place to start. And then go on until you come to the end, and then stop.
The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd because it was the middle of the night. The sea was wet as wet could be, the sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no clouds were in the sky. No birds were flying overhead, there were no birds to fly. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. The walrus and the carpenter walked on a mile or so, and then they rested on a rock conveniently low. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings.
Oh, is that it?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Is that it?
Yes, Your Majesty.
That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard then yet.
I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it.
Let the jury consider their verdict.
No, no, no. Sentence first, verdict afterwards.
Stuff and nonsense! The idea of having the sentence first!
Hold your tongue!
I won't!
Off with her head! Off with her head!
You don't scare me! You're nothing but a pack of cards!
And at this the whole pack rose in the air and came flying down upon Alice. She gave a little scream. A littler scream than that. Half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head on the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing her away some dead leaves that had fluttered from the trees onto her face. Wake up, Alice dear. Why, what a long sleep you've had.
Oh, I've had the most curious dream. There was a white rabbit and a Cheshire cat with a huge smile, and then I went to a tea party with a hatter, a hare and a dormouse, and they were all mad. And then there was a horrible queen who wanted to chop off people's heads.
It certainly was a curious dream, dear.
Do you think I shall ever go back there?
Who knows, Alice? When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. And if your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do. Alice, it's so important to keep dreaming. It's so important to think of the lessons you've learned. It's so important to think on those things. But more important than anything, you're never fully dressed without a smile.
Smile!